Final Fantasy VII Remake makes me angry. Despite enjoying my experience as a whole, it frustrates me to say I enjoyed this game. Final Fantasy VII is a very gamey game. It's the most generic experience I've played in a while. It's like eating venison after being served only Wagyu steak for the past few months. It's good, but it's not Wagyu steak. This game hits all of the marks for a AAA title. Wiggling through walls, long segments of walking and talking, unnecessarily long and convoluted side quests, and jiggle physics. Thankfully though, it doesn't do any of these generic tropes poorly, resulting in an overall high-quality package. By the way, full spoilers ahead, although the original game is older than me, so if you're worried about that, that's kind of a you problem. Final Fantasy VII Remake's story is good, if a bit generic and tropey at points. It follows the first third of the original Final Fantasy VII story as Cloud works for Avalanche, reunites with his hot childhood best friend, and fights Shinra, the laughably evil company that owns and runs the city of Midgar. Theming in the story is very surface level, with clear allegories to capitalism, pollution, and corruption. I like that transparency though. All of the villains are so evil. It's hilarious. President Shinra is literally just in it for the money. Capitalism is la bad and such. Hojo is a typical mad scientist done pretty well in a campy sort of way. Him constantly concocting disgusting new interpretations of his scientific revelations throughout his featured chapters is hilarious. I would have been a proud volunteer for his proposition in chapter 17.
We could have the Ancient reproduce.
Don Corneo is the greatest of all of the villains though. A slimy, disgusting, hateable asshole who, when finally revealed, after a chapter and a half of hype, is shown to be a fat loser. Corneo makes me laugh and giggle in every scene he's in though. And it's canonical that he likes femboys. In spite of this praise, I did find the ending sequences of the game to be a bit jarring, following the same JRPG trope I've seen a gajillion times where the team has to fight a godlike being at the very end. Sephiroth as a final boss works. He was foreshadowed throughout the whole game, and provides a solid setup for the next game in the trilogy. What I don't like though is how quickly he becomes the final boss, and how. The team rescues Aerith and is told to go to the top of Shinra Tower. However, rather than having to face off against, Shinra, a giant tentacle monster is astral projected into President Shinra's office. I understand why you would fight Jenova here. She was revealed earlier in the chapter, and her eradication acts as a means of crippling Shinra. But it just didn't make sense. It feels as if these things are happening solely for the sake of plot progression, that they happen just because they do. The player is vaguely told that the thing inside the lab was magical, but magic doesn't directly result in logical plot threads. Plot contrivances continue in the final chapter, where the poorly exposited Harbingers of Destiny, the Whispers, need to be stopped. Aerith vaguely says the fate of the world depends on stopping them. The party then fights the big monster, cause that's what you do at the end of a video game. Despite me ripping on the ending a little, the story is not bad, not at all. The scene where the plate drops did get me a little emotional, and as mentioned before, the characterization is great, not just for the villains. Each member of the main cast fulfills a purpose in the story, so it's hard to get sick of any one of them, or be disappointed when one gets more screen time than another. Aerith especially acts as a great catalyst for a lot of the game's plots, while also serving as an enjoyable character. The solo scenes between her and Cloud were very endearing and made me smile. The pacing of the story is also pretty well done, except for the ending. No chapter overstayed its welcome, and I feel I got a pretty healthy understanding of the setting. The different settlements all presented cool and unique set pieces for the party to challenge, the coolest of which being Wall Market. Being the empire of my goat, Don Corneo, Wall Market was the most unique and fun part of the game. The three other big bosses of Wall Market are awesome, and add to the sleazy, entertaining vibe of the area. Cloud's tough guy persona is completely debilitated by them through dance numbers, freak show death battles, erotic hand massages, and complete frame mugging. All of which culminating in Cloud's aforementioned sissification. Absolute cinema. Overall, the story gets a grade of... good.
Too easy. Piece of cake.
Definitely enjoyable, but not perfect. Although a few flaws prevent the story from excelling, Final Fantasy VII's gameplay and structure is what really docks the game some points. The core gameplay loop was created as an attempt to meld turn-based and real-time combat into one system. It works in some ways, but distinctly fails in others. To start, the combat structure and ability usage is great. There are clearly many different paths to take for how the player can build the party. Swapping between and commanding allies for different situations adds to that creative depth. By the end of the game, battles began to feel more like a puzzle rather than a button-mashing simulator, showing that the combination of two completely different combat systems was successful. Unfortunately, at many points throughout the game, I found the fights going for way too long, as if my team was pathetically grinding on the enemy like desperate secret lovers. Then, when scanning the enemies to see if I'm doing something wrong in the puzzle, I find that I am not doing something wrong and that this fight is supposed to take 20 fucking minutes. Also, I fucking hate these stupid fucking frogs. It may look like their attacks are obvious, but I'm telling you, there's something in the water making these frogs gay for my asshole. The Frogify effect sucks and is unfun. Anybody who puts a Frogify effect into their game needs to be castrated and removed from the gene pool. Banished from civilization with nothing but a stick and a bag to carry their pathetic belongings. An Employee of the Month mug and their GED. The game's UI is almost perfect, everything looks good and functional until you get into a battle, and it turns into an abysmal number slop simulator. Also, I feel like a good amount of mechanics weren't given the chance to be explained. Like, what the fuck does the speed stat do? Does it make you run faster? That's kinda pointless. Does it make you dodge better? That would be good information to have. What does Berserk do? I legitimately don't know. If I'm being stupid and I miss something, let me know, cause I feel like I'm losing my mind. If someone hasn't played a video game before, I feel like they wouldn't be able to intuit a lot of this game's mechanics. There's also so much walking. At many points throughout the game, there are segments that feel basically like pseudo-interactive cutscenes. Hold left stick forward and let the game happen to you, you mindless drone. That's what the devs must have been thinking when making some of these sections, and they don't even work. The controls are always so clunky. In this vent segment, it takes 5 years to transition between animations. Same with this bar climbing segment as Tifa. By the way, both of these could have been cutscenes. Why do I need to waste 3 fucking minutes going through the vents just to watch a cutscene? Why would I do clunky and visually disinteresting parkour as Tifa when Tifa could have done awesomely choreographed parkour in a cutscene? I don't always enjoy a game with unnecessarily long stretches of cutscenes, but sometimes they are necessary. Wiggle through a wall loading screens are present throughout the whole game as well, adding to the pile of generic, tropey attributes this game has. A lot is left to be desired with Final Fantasy VII's gameplay loop, but it is still enjoyable at times. The dopamine hit when defeating a difficult boss by mastering your team's unique build is real, and very enjoyable. The side quests are acceptable, and not really worth a bloated section of their own, but they did provide a good outlet for gaining extra levels and expanding world building. I can't complain about Final Fantasy VII's gameplay, not because it was good, but because it was perfectly fine.
Just made it.
I have a single gripe about Final Fantasy VII's art direction. The human NPCs look like shit. What is this, Sonic Adventure? I can't take this normal looking dude seriously when I'm spending the entire game looking at a glorified cartoon character. Their animations reek of outdated motion capture, and the texture work on the average person is jarring. Other than that, the game's art direction is absolutely incredible, and the main cast is incredibly well done. These characters are iconic for a reason. Each character follows art principles that convey their character traits before the player is given a chance to learn their personalities. Cloud's character design conveys that he is a competent individual through a balanced hourglass design. The feeling of put-togetherness is emphasized by the cinching of his clothes in physical form through the additional visual layers. His abdominal belt clearly separates his torso from his legs despite having a monochromatic color palette. Cloud's baggy pants tuck into his boots, freeing up leg movement. All of these design elements make Cloud a visually competent character. He looks like he knows what he's doing. Sephiroth has easily one of the coolest, most badass character designs I've ever seen. This guy is so raw and iconic that I held these beliefs long before I ever played this game. So much so that I actually built a magic deck around him the day that his card was spoiled. I built this deck before he was even available on EDHREC. All of these other people are posers. Sephiroth serves as a perfect contrast to Cloud. He shares certain visual themes with Cloud, like their shoulder pads and hourglass figure, demonstrating their spiritual connections. However, Sephiroth uses a long and slender sword, embodying his conniving and invasive nature, starkly different from the tough and noble senses that come from Cloud's large, imposing Buster Sword. Every character in the game can be analyzed in this game. Every design is purposeful, made with the goal of enriching the story and themes further. Each character also has a very recognizable silhouette, which both makes gameplay more intuitive through recognizability, but also makes them more visually interesting. Nobody wants a game with boring looking characters. All of the settings throughout the game are unique and engaging as mentioned earlier, with these attributes heavily deriving from the great art direction. Mixing early 1900s aesthetics with future punk fantasy is a pretty unique style. I thoroughly enjoyed exploring the cities in the early chapters. In an attempt to keep this script concise, that's all the analysis I'm gonna do for now. But know that that's not everything. From the enemy design, color choices, lighting, size and scale, it's obvious that the team behind this game's artwork poured their heart and souls into every single aspect of it. I absolutely loved it. You could say it was great.
That was cool!
Sound design and music can amplify a game's quality tenfold. It's a shame Final Fantasy VII didn't do that. I'm just kidding, of course. Final Fantasy VII's sound design was perfectly serviceable. It's just that there were no elements or specific scenarios where it really stood out to me. The sound design in this game did its job immersing me into gameplay, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. However, the dialogue in the game is way too compressed in a lot of moments. That is very immersion breaking, and I truly don't understand why studios do this. The game is already 90 fucking gigabytes. The least you can do is make your characters sound good. Music in Final Fantasy VII is what bumps this category up pretty hard. All of the ambient tunes are great for the settings. Not to glaze Wall Market again, but I'm glazing Wall Market again. As you walk through the different areas in Wall Market, the background music shifts based on who lords over the given area. This is really cool and characterizes the different subsettings really well. Ignoring the dynamic shifting, Wall Market's tracks are just good, and perfectly construct the underground, sleazy, but upbeat vibe of the city. This same philosophy applies to every track in this game. Battle music sounds awesome throughout the whole game, especially the rendition of Let the Battle Begin that uses motifs from the original game. The main theme of the game is a known video game classic for a reason. Its motifs are used throughout the whole game, culminating in the final lyrical rendition during the end credits, which is pretty good. Lastly, Sephiroth's theme is just as raw as the man himself. Can you tell why I played this game yet? The segment in the final fight where the choir rises as Cloud is getting humbled had me cheesing. Its composition was great. I wish I knew more about music and music theory to provide more insight, but just know that Final Fantasy VII's music and sound design at least pleased my ears, resulting in a score of good.
Too easy. Piece of cake.
And now, through the use of an arbitrary grading system, haphazardly tied to the 1 through 5 star ratings, Final Fantasy VII Remake averages out to a score of 4. It was pretty good. I'm content with how this score averaged out, so I won't be deviating plus or minus 1. Final Fantasy VII has a pretty solid, if not cheesy story with some even more solid characters. The gameplay can be fun, but a little frustrating or boring at times. Art direction and visual style in this game is perfect, constructing a visually engaging anime environment that I was constantly encapsulated by. The sound design is serviceable when needed, with some really good music tracks when the story or environment calls for it. Yep, that title was clickbait. Final Fantasy VII made me angry like 3 times, but I can't just go around saying I liked this game. I'm not some fat loser working at PetSmart flirting with people's moms.